I'm Sherilyn Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. This is episode 239, and today we're talking about how to turn a bad morning into a great day. So as I was sitting down to record this, I was thinking, someone out there listening is going to have pressed play on this episode because she had a really terrible morning. And if that is you and your day did not start off so well today, just consider yourself virtually hugged. I have been there more often than I can count. I'm sure we all have. And I hope that what I share today gives you the perspective that you need to get the rest of your day back on track. And if today is a day that started off really well for you and you are having some smooth sailing, pat yourself on the back for this one, because sometimes things do get a little bit topsy-turvy. Sometimes we start off our day with the best of intentions and it just goes sideways really quickly. Maybe you've had one of those experiences, either today or in recent history. Here's a couple of things that I thought of that would fall under the camp of, bad day or bad morning. One would be, your alarm didn't go off. We've probably all had that experience of feeling the pressure in our chest as we race around trying to still make the bus or get to work on time when the alarm just didn't go off as planned. Maybe you have been in traffic that's at a standstill while you're trying to get to someplace on time. That's always fun. One of my personal favorites. Maybe your child woke up vomiting. You thought you had the whole day under control. You took a shower, you got dressed, you go in to wake the kid up, and then all bets are off at that point. Maybe you got a phone call, your mom called to tell you about your sister's awesome promotion that we're all going to celebrate, and you're feeling a little green about that conversation. Maybe you backed your car out of the garage or thought you were about to back your car out of the garage, but backed it into the garage door that had not been raised. That happened to someone on my team once. Maybe someone brought a big box of donuts in, and it was the first day that you were doing a juice cleanse or something. Maybe you've had the experience of getting all the way to work and then realizing your laptop was at home charging. That has happened to me more than once when I was in an office. Maybe you spilled coffee on your white blouse. Maybe you lost it when your toddler cried about having cream cheese on her bagel after specifically asking for cream cheese on that bagel. How do you feel when any of these things happen? I could probably go on all day with my little list of things that constitute a bad morning. None of these are world-ending, earth-shattering events. And I did that on purpose because for the purposes of this episode, I want to talk about those irritating things that go wrong, that have the potential to throw off our whole day, but they're not actually really serious problems, right? I want to kind of stay in that zone for this particular episode. And the question is, when one or more of these things happens in your morning, how do you feel? What is it like for you to experience setbacks like this or irritants? What do you do when they happen? These are the times when I think what we want to do is just pack it in and go back to bed. I want to start over. But that isn't always practical. And honestly, it isn't always necessary. And I think often what we do is we lock in on all the things that happened. We start projecting forward and thinking, God, if this is how my day started, imagine how it's going to end. And we ruminate on this handful of things or collection of things that have not gone our way, sort of further anchoring into the belief that this is just our luck and this is how this day is going to go. Okay. So the question is, what if you could turn that on a fulcrum? What if you could turn the bad morning into a truly great day? And when I was starting drafting notes for this episode, I was thinking about the idea of a reboot, I guess, how do you reboot your day kept coming into my mind. And every time I would think about reboot, the words Ctrl Alt Delete would come into my head. even as a Mac user, right? These old habits die hard. So Ctrl Alt Delete, we all were taught, right, is what do you do when the computer just won't cooperate anymore and you need to reset it or reboot it? And I think that opened up a bit of a framework that I'm going to use for what I'm going to share today about how you can get your day back on track. Because when your computer is having its own bad morning, right, what do? When it's frozen and it won't cooperate, you hit Ctrl Alt Delete. And so I'm going to look at how that same process can work for us. So what is control in this situation? Control is the word for take charge of the situation, right? What can you control? And honestly, what can't you? Okay, so this is where we start thinking about moving forward. What do you need to do now, or what do you need to do next? How do you want to handle the situation that has unfolded? Rather than spending our mental energy rehashing what happened, right? Because by contrast, that's what we're prone to do. We're going to rehash over and over and over again. What happened? How did this happen? Why did this happen? Why me? Why not someone else? Why does this always happen? But that is really a pretty unhelpful cycle to get into. So instead, we want to think about, okay, what do I need to do? What can I control here? Think about some of those examples that I shared before. If your alarm didn't go off and you're now short on time, but you were about to sort of follow your normal routine and you know that's going to take you longer than you have, like what can you do, right? Is this the day your hair goes in a bun? Is this the day you don't do your makeup till you get to the office? Like what are the shortcuts essentially that you could use? You spilled coffee on your white shirt, but you have like a cardigan in the back seat that you can use. And you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to cover this thing up and wear it this way. Can you call your husband and say, hey, can you run me a different shirt over here? Like, what are the things that you can do that would handle the situation? Sort of pausing in the moment to say, all right, this did not go the way I planned, but what am I going to do? Do you ever find yourself saying, I just need a minute to breathe? While the whole idea of meditation can sound totally intimidating, I've found that stepping away from the chaos of life, even just for a few minutes, is incredibly restorative. So if you're short on time, but could use a few moments of peace right about now, listen to my 5-minute meditation for working moms. It'll help you clear your head and come back to your day feeling centered and refreshed. Head over to brilliant-balance.com/breathe. Press play and settle in for a few mini moments of peace right now. And another frame on this control piece is, can you give yourself a do-over? Is there a gentler version of going back to bed and starting over? But do you need to just sort of clear your mind and say, okay, let's try this again? Even if that's something like you backed into the garage door. Do you need to make the appropriate phone calls and then maybe take the other vehicle and go on to wherever you were planning to be? Like that notion of a do-over with grace, with a little bit of self-compassion can go a really long way, because the more time that we spend feeling powerless in the situation, then the worse things are going to get. So what we want to do is release what is truly beyond you, anything that is truly outside of your control, and start asking yourself, what can I actually do now? Okay? All right, so that's the control piece of this. So Ctrl Alt Delete, what's Alt? Alt is find an alternate narrative. Okay, a lot of times the reason we characterize the morning as a bad morning or the situation as bad is the story that we're telling ourselves about it. So I said at the beginning, I'm going to use examples today that I'm predefining as not that giant of a deal. Now, when you're the one who backed your car into the garage door, it feels like a giant deal, right, in that moment. But can you reframe the situation? Can you find the humor in it, for example? Can you tell the story to yourself and maybe eventually to others in a different way? Can you dial down the emotion on the way you're describing the situation so that it doesn't feel as intense the first time? So I think the alarm not going off is a good example here because we can really get into like, I'm so late, I'm so behind, I'm such a loser, why am I always late? Why am I so disorganized? Like it can become a much bigger story. Is there a way to make the story smaller, more humorous, less heavy? Another important way to think about the alt is, could you find a different villain in the story? Every story has a villain, right? We always have somebody we want to blame or something. Could you change the villain in the story, quote unquote, right, in a way that, again, makes it a little less intense, there's a little bit more levity or humor to the situation? Can you change the ending of the story when you're finding an alternate narrative? So often when we're describing a bad experience, we describe it as though the story has ended. My child woke up vomiting, and that's the end of the story. But it's actually the middle of the story, or maybe the beginning. So can you still find a way to change the ending? My child woke up vomiting, and because of that, I changed back out of my work clothes into, my yoga pants, and we cozied up for a really great day of board games and, Gatorade or like whatever your sick rituals are in your house. Like that, is there a way to change the ending into something that has a more positive frame? So that's the alt piece, is find an alternate narrative, a different story around the situation of what has happened. Third, delete, right? Ctrl Alt Delete. So what does delete mean? Delete simply means move on. Rumination is your enemy here. Okay, replaying this situation over and over and over and over again, as many of us are prone to do, is really only going to make you feel worse, right? You're going to sort of suffer again every time you retell the story, every time you go back over what happened in your head. So bad mornings, bad events don't have to live on forever. You ran the stop sign and you got the ticket on your way into the office in the morning. Delete it and move on, right? Let it go, because the more time we spend beating ourselves up about these things and playing woulda, coulda, shoulda, with all the different things we could have avoided, or if only I had done this, more of the day is going by. So more of the day is getting consumed by this initial rough start. And if you practice delete, and again, just the metaphor for like hit the delete key from your memory, just move on from this one, it really allows you to get on about the rest of the day with a more positive frame. Okay, bad mornings are going to happen. They happen to all of us, but they don't have to define the day. And if we can practice this simple little, mnemonic of Ctrl Alt Delete, if you can hold that in your mind when something happens that you weren't prepared for or weren't expecting, I think it can help you reclaim the rest of the day, right? And ask yourself like, well, what can happen now? Right? What can happen with the rest of the day now that I got this behind me? It's such a powerful reset opportunity and it's one that we can practice again and again, because again, these things happen pretty regularly in our day-to-day life. So the next time that you have something go really sideways in the morning, even if that was today, I want you to practice Ctrl Alt Delete and see if it can get you onto a terrific afternoon. Okay, if you liked something you heard today, please share this with a friend. Just take the episode, click that forward button, and let her know that you think this one's for her. And if you need a friend, come join our Facebook group. We have an awesome community of women in Facebook at Brilliant Balance is what you're searching in the groups. Fantastic community of women, so much support happening there when someone reaches out or posts a question or needs to crowdsource something, kind of get some recommendations. There is so much wisdom and so many great ideas inside of that very, very generous community that we've gathered on Facebook. So come join us if you haven't already. Bring your friends. And until next time, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.